before I forget, if you want to contact me, text NEMO, M-N-E-M-O, to the number 444-999. Or you can also email me at info@nemo.ai. So, let me tell you a story. Do you know who this man is? Anybody? So this is Cedric Anderson. He was a pastor with a military background who had recently married his girlfriend of 4 years. He was an entrepreneur starting a business, pretty much like me. And this is Cedric with his girlfriend, or actually his wife, Karen Elaine Smith. And one day in the spring, this past year, he went to visit her at the school where she worked. And he checked in at the front desk like everybody else, walked down the hall to her classroom, then he opened the door. He didn't say anything, he just pulled out a concealed weapon and he shot her 10 times. He loaded the gun and he killed himself. In the process, he killed her, he killed a young boy, Jonathan Martinez, and he injured a second child, Nolan Brady. So, who knew that a nice-looking guy like him could be dangerous? Well, it turns out that the police knew. You see, Cedric had a criminal history of weapons charges and domestic violence. But the school didn't know that, and they had no way of knowing or suspecting anything. So at NEMO, we want to change that with SAM, the device that I just showed you. So today, 95% of elementary schools are locked during the day, and they have a buzzer system to let visitors in. So SAM replaces that buzzer with a modern one with a video camera and facial recognition software. And we can do two things. On one hand, we can train our system to recognize people from the public record who have a history of, who have mugshots from local police, for example, or known sex offenders, or and the most wanted lists in the state or the country, or also people who the school wants to keep out because they have a history of violence, or they may be parents that don't have custody of the children in the school. And on the other hand, we can also train it to recognize people that are allowed in the school. The parents, teachers, staff, guardians. And if it doesn't recognize anybody, we can have it give a notice to the attendant that they need to ask for ID. So in addition to helping improve the security in ways that are not intrusive, and at the same time maintain a friendly and welcoming environment, we can reunify families after an emergency, or we can speed up pickups by getting the kids to line up in order, in the same order as the parents who are queuing up in their cars. So we expect to charge about $1 per student per year for our service. And to put that in perspective, the U.S. spends about $12,000 per student per year in education. So this graph is not to scale. There isn't enough resolution to put a $1 in that scale. There are 33 million students in elementary schools in the U.S., and 2.6 million of those are enrolled in private and charter schools, which we think should be the initial part of our beachhead market. Our main competition is a system with a driver's license that scan people that come in, but those systems are slow. They're problematic for communities that have undocumented parents, and more importantly, they're used indoors. So by the time you scan the driver's license, the person is already in your school. So a little bit about me. I'm a software developer with 20-some years of experience. I worked at Goldman Sachs and other companies. And my business partner has about 17 years of experience with his own business and is a user interface expert. And one more thing. We can also, sound of shattered glass, for example, and gunshots, also activate SAM, and it prompts us to call the police. This is Anna Marcus Green. She was one of the victims of the Sandy Hook tragedy. And to be sure, Siam alone could not have prevented that tragedy. Lanza entered the school by shooting a glass window next to a glass panel next to a locked door. And by the time the police arrived, which they arrived very quickly, the whole tragedy was over. But we could have helped, and especially in conjunction with a more comprehensive solution that includes better policies and procedures and bulletproof glass and exterior windows. Also keep in mind that Sandy Hook in North Park Elementary, the case that I mentioned before, are extremely rare. Our children really are safe. But what is more common and what SAM can also help with are not quite as tragic, but still criminal activities, theft and other crimes in our schools. So anyway, with that, let me put Sam back up and I'll take some questions. Thank you.
What is your process for preventing false positives, such as somebody who maybe had their weapons license lapse a few years ago, or a babysitter without their license on them?
So actually, those are two interesting questions, and they combine a few things. We are actually replacing the driver's license system with one that is triggered by your face instead of a driver's license. And so, what you're talking about are actually some of the shortcomings of our competition, which is systems that use driver's license to do background checks when you come into the schools.
Well, I'm thinking about someone who hasn't had their photo registered yet because they're a new babysitter or something, and they would be asked for identification but can't provide.
Yeah, so the intention, the way that we intend to use the software is to send, when parents are registering their kids for school, and they give a list of everybody that is permitted to pick up their kids, we want them to also submit one or multiple photographs of each one of those people. If they want to add somebody later on, again, just send us a couple of pictures of those people and we'll be able to recognize them when they come into the school. Yes?
I just wanted to know, like, why you have chosen schools as your target market? Why not other areas or other businesses?
I'm glad that you asked that because that's what I've been spending most of my time over the last 3 months is just doing market analysis. And of all the markets that I have studied so far, it looks like elementary schools are an interesting market because there's a pull for this technology. And elementary schools in particular are an interesting market because our technology could look at children, but we chose to make it ignore the children for PR reasons, public relations reasons. And in elementary schools, we don't actually need to have the children be our subjects. We are really focused on the adults that are surrounding the school. Go ahead.
For SLAM, facial recognition technology, are you using the API or do you build the system in-house, and how did you make that decision?
That's an excellent question. We are using an API. We're currently using Microsoft's Azure Face Recognition API, but there are several others, and we designed our software so that we can swap the back end as the technologies evolve. And the main reason we did it that way is because we wanted to create a prototype that was easy to create, but also we wanted to have it be a platform where we could test the different facial APIs as they evolve and be able to switch to the best one. We chose not to develop it ourselves because at this point, the facial recognition component of things is pretty commoditized, and frankly, we really cannot compete against giants like Microsoft or Facebook Plus, etc. So instead, we're focusing on building applications using those technologies. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but certainly there are thousands of rehabilitated former criminals that have children. You're providing the facial recognition software. Are you going to leave it up to the individual schools to be the gatekeeper, or do you plan on to provide that part of the service?
Again, two good questions buried in there. The first one is, our system allows us to override one list versus the other because, as you mentioned, there are rehabilitated former criminals. There are people who And actually, there's a lot in that question. Notice that we did not give detailed information about why we thought that somebody should be, should have a red background, why somebody should be a flag for the school. And that's on purpose, because there's a huge range of reasons why you should be in a criminal database. And it also comes a little bit to your question about false identification. We don't want to accuse somebody of being a criminal. We don't want to accuse somebody of a heinous crime. We just want to alert the person who's responsible for letting them in that maybe they need to be a little bit more careful. In addition, there are rehabilitated people that the school might want to move out of their list. If you have a child that goes to the school, it doesn't matter whether you had a DUI when you were a teenager yourself, you should not be stigmatized by a system like this. And the intention with the system is to avoid that type of stigma that comes with having to have everybody present a driver's license when they come into a school. Instead, we'll be friendly for everybody. If you need to talk to me, I'll be around here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions and talk to anybody. Also, one quick thing, I am looking for a co-founder. Both my partner and I are technical people, and we're looking for a business co-founder. Thank you very much.